Okay, hi and welcome to the recording for potential applicants to the MRC Board and Panel Observer Scheme. I'm Rosie Timbrell and my colleague Amy Waite is also here today. We're both programme managers at the Medical Research Council and we are responsible for running this scheme and we'll be co-presenting this session today. So due to technical issues, we've had to re-record the session, so you won't see any of the original questions and answers from the day of the webinar. We've addressed any questions that came in separately in the webinar questions and answers document, which will also be saved to the Observer web page. So we'll start with a presentation covering an introduction to the scheme. We'll talk about eligibility criteria. We'll do a walkthrough of the application form and we'll cover information on how observers are selected, as well as what to expect if you are invited to observe. So to go over the introduction of the scheme offers what we hope is a fantastic opportunity to observe one of MRC's selected funding board or panel meetings. So we hope this experience enhances transparency, allowing you to see in best practice how our research boards and panels work and fund the best quality science. It helps you understand how various complex elements like research questions, methodologies, and cost effectiveness all come together in our funding decisions. It provides valuable insights to help you develop your own successful research applications and may also assist you in writing high quality reviews for applications as an expert or a peer reviewer yourself. Observers are also given the opportunity to provide their views on our assessment process and suggestions for improvements, as well as feedback on the observer scheme itself, which gives us valuable insight from our research community, as well as the opportunity for observers to help shape our practices. So we'll talk more in detail about eligibility and our selection process later on, but the scheme is open to early to mid-career researchers who are at the stage in their career where they are transitioning to independence and who are potential applicants to one of the MRC's funding opportunities. So it's important also to note that the scheme prioritises places for individuals who are part of groups of people that are underrepresented across the STEM pipeline. So we hope this will work towards mitigating the disadvantage linked to certain characteristics and address disproportionate levels of participation and disparities in award rates that we've identified in our diversity data. In terms of what meetings you can apply to observe any of the funding opportunities listed in this slide. For most opportunities, we've identified 2 meetings that observers can attend for each board or panel. And just to note, the equipment panel only meets once a year. So depending on the opportunity, funding meetings are held between 1 to 3 times a year for each board or panel. These funding meetings usually run over the course of 2 or sometimes 3 days, but each observer will only attend for one of the days. So we think this is adequate time to get a good understanding and insight into our assessment process and the discussions had by our panellists. And it also allows us to maximise the number of observers we can accommodate over the course of the year. This is a popular scheme and we have relatively limited places to offer in relation to the number of applicants. So in the application, you can indicate your first and second choice of meeting you want to attend. We encourage you to review the remit of each board and panel before applying. And information on the remit of our boards and panels, as well as the confirmed dates of the funding meetings, can be found on our websites. So what to expect at the meeting if you're invited to attend. We hold a mix of in-person and virtual meetings throughout the year, and you can indicate in your application your preference for how you would like to attend, and we'll do our best to accommodate you. We appreciate that attending a meeting in person is not an option for everyone, so the ability to dial in virtually to an in-person meeting will always be an option. Obviously, though, for virtual meetings, everyone will be online, so there won't always be the opportunity to attend in person. Those attending the meetings in person will have the opportunity to network with each other, board or panel members and MRC staff during the breaks. Unfortunately, there's less opportunity to do this if you're attending a virtual meeting. And just to note, if you do attend in person, we will reimburse reasonable travel costs in line with our policy, and that includes staying overnight if that's a requirement for you. Observers will only attend the portion of the meeting where the funding applications are being assessed, regardless of the day of the meeting they're allocated to attend. So our boards and panels will often have strategic items and other MRC business to discuss, which observers won't be able to attend. And observers also won't be present for the ranking of applications, which happens at the very end of a funding meeting when necessary. So it's only the discussion and scoring of funding applications that observers will see. So if you're successful, you'll be given a specific date and time slot to attend where you'll get to see a subset of applications discussed. The chair of the board or panel will invite observers into the meeting at the appropriate time to very briefly introduce themselves and to begin observing. And this will usually be for around 4 or 5 hours, and there'll be regular breaks during that time. We'll make any reasonable adjustments required to allow successful applicants to fully participate in the scheme. So you can let us know in advance if there are any adjustments needed. Observers are given access to the assessment information for applications they'll be observing in advance of the meeting, just so they're able to familiarise with themselves with the applications and to better follow the discussion of the panellists. And this includes the applications themselves, the associated expert reviews, and the applicant response to reviews if there is one. So access is usually given around a week in advance of the meeting, and we have very strict expectations around confidentiality in order to protect all those involved in the assessment process, which will be communicated to successful observers before being given access to any information. Moving on to the eligibility criteria. So we welcome applications from researchers who are potential applicants to one of the MRC funding opportunities or equivalent schemes from other relevant funders, but your research interests must fit the remit of the MRC. So to be eligible to apply, you must be based at an eligible research organisation, which are all listed on our website, and be at the stage in your career where you are transitioning to independence. And you can see our webpage outlining the skills and experience expected at the career stage of transitioning to independence. We really recommend that you read the information on this page before applying to ensure you're at the correct stage to benefit from the scheme. If you're applying to the equipment panel only, research technical professionals are also eligible. So I mentioned the equipment panel. So for that panel, as well as those transitioning to independence, this opportunity encourages research technical professionals who are seeking to enhance their career development or are beginning to think about applying for grants. And we recognise that the developmental pathway funding scheme applications can start and finish at any stage on the developmental pathway. This includes stages from early development through preclinical refinement and testing into early phase clinical studies and trials, including research that is highly multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary. So under the Observer Scheme for DPFS, we welcome applications from all relevant scientific disciplines working in clinical or preclinical translation within the MRC remit. Also, just to address one of the frequently asked questions from the webinar around whether postdocs are eligible to apply and the threshold between postdoc and senior postdocs. For this scheme, the term postdoc would refer to postdocs who've very recently undertaken their PhD. So we would consider senior postdocs in this instance, those who have the skill set to be actively developing their independence. And if you're a clinical academic, the focus for this scheme should be the stage of your academic career rather than the stage of your clinical training. So to be eligible, clinical academics would need to be postdoctoral and likely be at the clinical scientist fellowship or stage or a clinical lecturer. But if you have any questions specific to your eligibility, then you could contact us on the Research Funding Policy and Delivery email, which will be included in our questions document. So who's not eligible to apply? You should not apply if you've been awarded an MRC grant as a project lead, previously principal investigator, or a comparable award from any organisation, unless the award was a fellowship or a new investigator grant. You shouldn't apply if you're involved in any way with an application under review by the board or panel you want to observe. So this is applicable if you are named in the application in any way, not just if you're the project lead or co-lead. You can still apply to observe an alternative meeting for the same board or panel or a different board or panel if it's still relevant to your research, just not the funding meeting where your application will potentially be assessed. You can't apply if you've participated in an equivalent board or panel with another funder. or if you have previously observed an MRC board or panel funding meeting in any capacity. So I will now pass over to Amy, who will take you through the application form.
Thank you very much, Rosie. I'm just going to share my screen. Share. Can I just check, Rosie, that you're able to see the board and panel observer page? Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. So I'm going to run through, I'll give you a bit of a walkthrough for the application process. First of all, so here you can see this is our MRC board and panel observer page. And if you scroll down, all of the information that me and Rosie will talk about today is available on this page. So you can see lots of information here. And if you scroll all the way down, you can also see, you know, if you need to ask us a question, this is the email address that you can contact us on. So within the web page, you can also find where to apply. So under the how to apply section, and if you just click on this, it will take you onto the survey to apply. There's also just here, if you want to have a look at all of the questions before, if I'll open this in a new link so you can see, you can actually look at all of the questions on a document before, so you can have an idea of everything that you'll be asked. But I will also run through them now so you can see them. The closing date is the 26th of February. If you try to apply afterwards, the survey will be closed and you will not be able to apply, and we will not accept any applications following this. So I'm going to just go on to the survey. So I've got a link open here, which will take me onto the survey. So this is a preview page. This isn't something that, so what I'm going to show you is exactly what you'll be able to see, but you won't have this part at the top, and that's because I created the survey, and so as I can show you through the preview without me having to go through and populate every single box. So I'll be going through it, but for you, you'll need to go through and populate all of the boxes. So first of all, you press apply. So all of the information that we have on our web page is also kind of available throughout the survey. We've tried to make it really easy for you to find the information that you need as you go through. So you press apply to begin, and it will take you onto this page where you'll complete your personal details. So your title, name, surname, email address, and it's really important because that email address is the main way that we will contact you throughout the scheme if you're successful or unsuccessful, and phone number. So it is under required, but the phone number is, if you prefer just to put some numbers in there, that's absolutely fine. The email address is absolutely paramount though, we really need that. So for example, if you were to try and continue from here without populating this information, I'll just show you what does happen. You can see that these are all required fields. So the form will not let you progress if you have not completed the required fields. So because I'm in the preview stage, I can go through that, but you won't be able to. So I will go on to the next page. So here you can see the organisation page. You put your current employer in here. So if you are affiliated with multiple organisations, then please provide the details of your most relevant current employer in here. If you're on a career break and are affiliated with an organisation, you can put their info in here. Or if you're not, you can put just that you're on a career break, and you can put your geographical location here. And you can also put like other under the type of organisation. We also ask you to put what region you're based in, a link to your profile on your organisation's website, and a time zone. I'll take you on to the eligibility page. So here is your eligibility page. So first of all, it asks you, are you based at an eligible research organisation? And please refer to the eligibility criteria above. So if you're not sure if you're based at an eligible research organisation, one of the things that you might want to do is talk with your research office staff, because they'll definitely be aware if they've been applying to MRC funding. Or you can have a look on here as well. So you can open this in a new link to have a look. It'll come up here. There you go, and it will take you into here. So who can apply and how to apply. And you can, before applying for funding, you can check the eligibility of your organisation and go into here. And it will take you onto these different, and it lists all of the different organisations. So back onto here. So What you would do then is if you are eligible to apply, you will press yes. If you're not eligible to apply and you press no, and it says here, unfortunately, you are not eligible to apply. Because of the way that the surveys are made, it doesn't have the functionality to then stop you from continuing to complete it. So even though it has told you here that you're ineligible to apply, you can continue to complete the form. If you do that, when we receive it at our end and when we are shortlisting the applications, these are the applications that will be removed straight away. So if you come to a question and your answer tells you you are ineligible to apply, you should stop filling out the form because it's told you the answer, you are ineligible to apply in that scenario. And then you can see here, these are all the different ineligible reasons, and you just go through each one of them just to confirm, have you been awarded an MRC grant as a project lead? And if you say yes, unfortunately, you are ineligible to apply, although this does not include fellows or new investigator grants. And equally, you go through each of these and you answer them appropriately. Have you participated in an equivalent board or panel from another funder? If yes, again, you're ineligible. And this one is, do you have an application for review by the requested board or panel? So what you want to, if you do have an application to review, you can still apply, but you need to be applying to one of the boards or panels that does not have your application coming into it. So then here you can see your career stages. So Rosie went into quite a bit of detail about the career stages, but you can also, if you're thinking about how it should be defined, you can also look to these links. So I'll press on that one. And this will take you through our career pathways and role descriptions. So there's lots of descriptions here that kind of show you our career pathways. And then we have our interactive version as well, which is also linked on the page. If you could bear with me a minute whilst it loads. You can see here the main people that we're really kind of targeting is that kind of progression into independence. And that's a lot of the reason that we're targeting a specific field of people is because of space and the limitations of numbers on our that we're able to take onto our boards and panels. So we are targeting certain really people who are like that transitioning into that independence, notably with a few people who are nearing that more in that independence realm. But this, you can see it across here, that transitioning into independence. I'll take this back into the. Okay, and then we can continue on to the equality, diversity and inclusion information page. So you can see here there's information about why we're asking this, why we're asking this information. It also lets you know, your answers will be treated in the strictest confidence. We handle personal data in line with UK data protection legislation and we manage it securely. And you can see a lot more information here, which you can click onto again, about how to exercise your rights and read our privacy notice. And you can find out more as well by contacting equalitymrc@ukri.org. So the questions are, so all of these questions are required, although it's up to you how you answer them. So if you prefer, you can put prefer not to say. However, we will prioritise on these characteristics. So where you are comfortable to do so, please do complete this information. So you can complete these as you go through. Sex and gender, sexual orientation, ethnicity. And then coming down into disability, and here we've got the definition of disability or long-term condition, and you can pop in here whether you consider yourself to have a disability or long-term condition, or you can say prefer not to say as well. And then you can choose whether you'd like to tick one of these, or you can say prefer not to say. We also have a box here, so if you do have a disability or long-term condition and you'd like some reasonable adjustments, please do feel that you can put it in there. And then finally, we end this page on socioeconomic background. So the question is, what was the occupation of your main household earner when you were aged 14? and you choose one of these ones. Or you can say prefer not to say again. If you choose other, if you can complete the information in here, that would be really useful. And then looking on to expertise. You can put up to 2 choices, appreciating that some people's expertise will span across our boards and panels remits. It really is best for you to go and watch applications that are really in your area of expertise. You'll only be assigned one of these boards or panels. You won't be able to view multiple ones, it's only one. So what you do here is you select which ones you would like to apply. So you might be infections and immunity, and you might also maybe like applied in global health, so you can do that. Or if you're only interested in and you only think you're available to view that one, then you can put I only want to view my first choice. And then that lets us know that that's the only one that you would like to come and view. We do have the dates, so some of the dates are available for the July, April, May, June, July meetings on our website, application timelines page. We have also put them in the webinar questions and answer document. So hopefully that will help you to decide which dates are preferable. And you can also check if you're not sure which boards or panels are really for you. If you go onto the research portfolio and priorities here, you can see here, so we've got the Global Health Board, and you can look at their scope and what they're doing, and you can understand, you can think to yourself, is this what I'm interested in viewing? And equally, you can go onto one of our boards, so infections and immunity, molecular and cellular medicine, neurosciences, and populations and systems medicine. Or if you go into the translational research, this will show you, so if you go into, I think it's opportunities, if you go into the opportunities bit, there's a bit about the experimental medicine panel, which we also have spaces on, and the developmental pathways funding scheme, which we have spaces on. So you can read those and you can make the decision about which board or panel you think would be most appropriate for you to view. So our expectation would be that whatever you've put in here, when you then write your expertise, it makes sense to why you've selected that board or panel, because your expertise is aligned with that board or panel. Okay. And then you click through and you'll go on to this page. So this consent is all about how we're going to be treating your data, letting you know that we'll monitor and evaluate applicants' data on at an aggregate level, where we will ensure we meet our aims and develop future ways of working. So we might share anonymised aggregated data with our executive leadership team, share this with other funders or other sector bodies for the purpose of sector research and analysis, and publish anonymised aggregated data on our webpage. And this is just really for you to give consent to your data being collected in this way. Your answers will be treated in the strictest, treated confidentially, and will be stored securely in accordance with UK law and UK Research and Innovations Data Protection Policy. And you can look at that there if you're interested as well. We're also really interested to hear about how you heard about our scheme. So we have various ways that we try to get the messages out there, and we're really keen to make sure that we're getting out the information about this amazing chance to come and observe one of our boards or panels. So please do let us know how you heard about the scheme. And then, so when you click continue, it will then take you onto this page, and you can put your email address in if you'd like to receive a PDF copy of your response. And then finally, you will click that through, and you need to press on the submit, and it will bring you up with this. So your response ID, you'll actually have a proper ID here, not just XXX. But this ID, it's a receipt. So it says, you've submitted your application. So that needs to happen. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing now for a minute, because then I'm going to reshare the slides. So bear with me a second. So now that we've finished the walkthrough, I'm going to talk to you about the selection process. So this scheme prioritises underrepresented groups, recognising this as an issue across the STEM field, so that's the science, technology, engineering, mathematics and medicine, and as identified in our own MRC data, as Rosie touched on earlier. So this does include people who are disabled or have long-term conditions, as defined by the Equality Act 2010, from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, from the LGBTQ+ community, women, and from certain minority ethnic backgrounds, and these are all identified on the web page that I just showed you. So looking at how we will allocate places. So places will first be offered to individuals who fall within our identified priority groups, as highlighted in the previous slide. We will also consider geographical location, organisation type, and the board or panel you have applied to observe. For the Applied Global Health Research Board, we will seek to place half international and half UK-based as observers. And if needed, places will then be allocated randomly via a lottery system. So what happens to your application after it goes through? So you'll be contacted by email to let you know the outcome of your application. Unfortunately, due to the expected volume of applicants, we won't be able to provide feedback if you were not successful. Successful individuals will be contacted in 2 batches to observe funding meetings. The first batch will be for observers attending meetings between April and July 2025, and we expect to contact you between March-April time 2025. The second batch will be for observers attending meetings between September and December 2025, and we expect to contact you by July or August 2025. And finally, unsuccessful applicants will be informed following the final batch of selections. Now, this is because if we have people turn down the offers, then we will obviously offer those spaces out to other people. So we don't decline people until we've offered out all of the spaces and filled all of the spaces, so that we know that we're getting as many people in to observe as we possibly can. And what will happen if I'm chosen as an observer? So all applicants invited to observe will be asked to agree in writing to the MRC's confidentiality requirements relating to the assessment of applications. They'll be invited to attend a briefing session on the MRC grant assessment process. That briefing session is normally with me or Rosie. And it will be specific to the funding meeting that you're going to observe. This will be scheduled around a week in advance of the funding meeting, and it lasts roughly an hour. You will be given access to the assessment information via the funding service in advance of the meeting, normally a week in advance. And then you will be invited to observe the discussion of a subset of applications on one of the days. And most funding meetings take place over the course of 2 days. You will also be invited to attend a debriefing session with an MRC programme manager to discuss what you observed at the funding meeting and address any other outstanding questions. This is a really great opportunity for you to talk with somebody who was actually sat in the board or panel with you, and be able to ask them really specific questions about what you saw. And this is that in a nutshell is what you will get out of the Observer programme should you be successful. And I think that brings us to the end. So thank you very much.